The morning alarm rang across Kethis Prime, but there was no sun to greet the day. There had been no sun for 3,000 years. Instead, massive machines floated in the sky like dark clouds. These shadow generators blocked out the natural light from their star, keeping the world in endless twilight. Zeph shuffled out of his small home, his blue skin patches glowing weakly. The bioluminescent spots on his arms and face should have been bright and colorful, but hunger and sadness had made them dim. He walked the same path he had taken every day for 20 years, heading to the mineral processing plant where he worked. All around him, other Velinari moved through the gray streets. No one talked much anymore. No one looked up at the sky. They had learned long ago that hoping for change only brought pain. The Umbral hegemony made sure of that. The hegemony ruled 17 sectors of space, keeping billions of people under their control. They had done this for thousands of years, and they were very good at it. They did not rule with armies or weapons, though they had those too. They ruled by taking away hope. They made people forget that life could be better. High above the city, Commander Tarek sat in his monitoring station. The black metal room was filled with screens and sensors that watched every person on the planet below. He was not Velinari. He was something else, something that looked like living shadow wearing armor. His red eyes scanned the data flowing across his displays. Population productivity holding at 67%, he said to himself. This was good, not too high, which might mean people were getting ideas about improving their lives. Not too low, which would mean the planet was not useful anymore. 67% was perfect for the hegemony's needs. Rebellion incidents, 0 for the past 10 years. He continued reading. This was even better. On some worlds, people still tried to fight back. They would build hidden laboratories, or try to create better technology. The hegemony always crushed these attempts, but they were annoying. Kethis Prime had learned its lesson well. Tarik remembered the last rebellion here, 30 years ago. A group of young Velinari had found some old books about their people's past. They learned that their ancestors had once built ships that could travel between stars. They had created beautiful cities that glowed with their own light. They had been artists and scientists and dreamers. The rebels had tried to build a small fusion reactor in an abandoned warehouse. They wanted to show their people that the old stories were true, that technology was not forbidden by the universe itself. The hegemony had let them work for 3 months, watching and learning. Then, when the reactor was almost finished, the Shadow Wardens had arrived. The rebels disappeared. Their families never spoke of them again. The warehouse was turned into another processing plant. The message was clear. Some knowledge was too dangerous to seek, but today felt different. Tarek could not explain why, but something in the air had changed. His sensors were picking up strange readings from the edge of the star system. Energy patterns that did not match anything in the hegemony's vast databases. Long-range scan, Sector 7, he commanded his computer. The display showed empty space, the same dark void that surrounded all their worlds. But the energy readings were getting stronger. Then he saw them. 3 ships appeared on his screen, moving faster than anything should be able to move. But that was not what made Tarek's shadow form freeze with shock. These ships were bright. They burned with white-hot fusion flames that lit up the darkness around them like tiny stars. Impossible, Tarek whispered. No one in the galaxy used fusion drives anymore. The hegemony had made sure all such technology was destroyed or forgotten. Fusion meant unlimited energy. Unlimited energy meant people could build whatever they wanted, go wherever they chose, become whatever they dreamed of being. The ships slowed as they approached. Kethis Prime, their energy signatures were so strong that they were interfering with the shadow generators. For the first time in 3,000 years, a few rays of actual sunlight broke through the artificial darkness and touched the planet's surface. Down in the city, Seth stopped walking. A beam of yellow light had fallen across his path. warm and strange. He looked up and saw something that made his heart beat faster. The shadow generators were flickering, and beyond them, 3 bright objects moved across the sky like falling stars in reverse. Other Velinari stopped and stared. Children who had never seen real light pointed at the golden beams with wonder. Parents who had forgotten what hope felt like began to remember. The anomaly had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Jinwoo Park had seen many strange things in his 15 years of space exploration, but this was different. He stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the massive alien space station fill their main screen. The structure was beautiful, built with curves and spirals that seemed to flow like water frozen in metal. Whoever built this clearly knew advanced engineering, but the power readings made no sense at all. "Captain, I'm getting the same numbers," said Engineering Chief Hyunwoo Nam, shaking his head at his console. "That entire station is running on geothermal power. It's like they're heating their whole base with hot water from underground." Communications Officer Mingi Lee looked up from her station with a confused expression. "Sir, they keep sending the same message. They want us to dim our essence and quiet our light. I've never heard anything like it." Jinwoo walked closer. To the main screen. The space station was easily 5 kilometers long, with thousands of windows and docking ports. Ships moved around it in organized patterns. This was clearly a major hub for space traffic. So why were they using technology that humans had abandoned centuries ago? Maybe they ran out of better fuel sources, suggested Navigator Soman Kim. "No way," Hyunwoo replied, pulling up more data on his screen. "Look at this. Their star is perfect for solar collection. They have 3 gas giant planets perfect for fusion fuel mining. And their asteroid belt has enough rare metals to build 1,000 fusion reactors. They have everything they need, but they're not using any of it." Science Officer Jeon Choi was studying the alien ships moving around the station. "Captain, this is really strange. Their ship designs are incredible. Look at those hull curves, that metal composition. They know things about materials science that we're still learning. But their engines..." She paused, double-checking her readings. "Their engines are barely more advanced than chemical rockets. It's like they deliberately chose to use weaker technology," Minji added. "But why would anyone do that?" Jinwoo had been thinking the same thing. In his experience, every civilization pushed their technology as far as possible. Better engines meant faster ships. Better power sources meant stronger shields and weapons. Better computers meant smarter navigation and communication. It was the natural way of progress. Unless something was stopping them. Captain Minji said suddenly, "We're getting another transmission. This one is different. It sounds scared. Put it through." The voice that came from the speakers was soft and musical, but filled with worry. The translation system worked quickly. "Bright ships of the unknown, please hear our warning. Your light burns too strong. The watchers will notice. You must hide your fire before they come." The bridge fell silent. Jinwoo looked around at his crew. "The watchers. I don't know," Sir Minji replied. "But they sound really afraid." Hyunwoo was studying his engineering displays. "Captain, our fusion drives are running at normal power. We're not even pushing them hard. If this much light scares them, what happens when we need full power?" Down on the planet below, something amazing was happening. Zeph had never seen his own shadow before. The concept did not exist in his world. But now, as the bright human ships moved across the sky, dark shapes appeared on the ground around the Velinari people. At first, everyone was terrified. The shadows looked like the dark shapes that the hegemony used to frighten children. But these shadows moved when you moved. They stretched and changed as the light moved above. "Look," whispered Zeph's neighbor, an old female named Kira. She raised her arm, and her shadow raised its arm too. "It copies what we do." More Velinari gathered in the streets, playing with their shadows like children with a new toy. For the first time in generations, They were laughing. Real laughter, not the careful, quiet sounds they made during the approved recreation periods. But the joy did not last long. Alert sirens began wailing across the city. The public speakers crackled to life with Commander Tarek's cold voice. All citizens return to your homes immediately. The sky fire is dangerous. Do not look at it. Do not think about it. Await further instructions. Most of the Velinari obeyed immediately, fear overcoming wonder. They had learned to obey the hegemony without question, but some, like Zeph, stood, frozen in place. The warm feeling of real sunlight on his skin was too amazing to give up. Back on the Prometheus, Captain Jinwoo made his decision. Minji, send a response to the station. Tell them we come in peace and want to talk. We'll reduce our engine power to make them feel safer. Sir, reducing power will leave us vulnerable if we need to run, Hyunwoo warned. I know, but something is very wrong here, and we need to find out what. Jinwoo looked at the beautiful but mysteriously underpowered station. These people are scared of light itself. That's not normal. Someone or something has made them this way. As the human ships dimmed their engines slightly, the shadow generators on Kethis Prime stabilized. The brief taste of sunlight faded, and the world returned to its familiar gray twilight. But in the hearts of some Velinari, a small flame had been lit that would never go out completely. The anomaly had arrived, and everything was about to change. Sung Jin Ko pressed his face close to the strange device, his 4 tentacles trembling with excitement. The human engineer had called it a portable fusion cell, but those words meant nothing to him. What mattered was what his eyes could see, and his instruments could measure. The small metal box, no bigger than his torso, was producing more electrical power than his people's entire continental power grid. This was impossible. The hegemony had taught all species that such energy concentrations would tear apart the fabric of space itself. It's really quite simple, explained engineer Minho Seo, his voice carrying a strange accent that the translation device struggled with. Basic deuterium fusion. We just take heavy water, heat it up really hot, and the atoms stick together. Makes lots of energy. Your people must use something similar for big power plants, right? Sungjin's tentacles curled and uncurled rapidly, a sign of deep confusion among his species. We were taught that such things were impossible. The hegemony showed us the math. They said the universe itself forbids such concentrations of energy, that trying to build such devices would destroy entire star systems. Minho laughed, a bright sound that had not been heard in these underground tunnels for over a century. Forbids. The universe doesn't forbid anything. Physics just has rules, like a game. If you understand the rules, you can do amazing things. It just takes clever engineering. The human engineer opened the side panel of his fusion cell, revealing a maze of glowing components. See this? Magnetic containment field keeps the hot plasma from touching the walls, and this quantum efficiency enhancer makes the whole process more stable. Your ancestors probably built things like this all the time. Our ancestors, Sungjin whispered. Sure, you guys built this whole station, right? Look at these metal alloys. This architecture. Someone who could build this definitely knew fusion technology. Probably knew a lot more advanced stuff too. Sungjin felt something crack inside his mind. A wall that had been there his entire life suddenly had a hole in it. If the humans were right, if fusion was possible, then what else had the hegemony lied about? That night, Sungjin sent a coded message through the old communication networks that most people had forgotten existed. The message was simple. The Lightbringers speak truth. The forbidden knowledge is real. Within hours, the message had reached 17 different star systems. On each world, it found people who had been waiting their entire lives for something like this. On the crystal world of Nexus 7, an old being named Visus received the message while hiding in the abandoned mines. Visus was one of the last Nexari who remembered the old ways, when his people could sing mathematics into reality. The hegemony had banned their song science, claiming it was dangerous superstition. But if humans could build fusion reactors, maybe the old songs were science too. Isis began to hum, very quietly at first. The notes were complex mathematical formulas that his grandmother had taught him in secret. As he sang, the crystal walls around him began to glow with soft blue light. His heart raced with joy and terror. It worked. The songs still worked. On the water world of Velanara, marine biologist Kess had spent 20 years secretly studying the old texts. Her people had once grown cities from living coral, guided by bioengineering knowledge that seemed like magic. The hegemony said such technology was myth, but when Kess read Sungjin's message, she decided to try one of the old experiments. She whispered the growth songs to a small piece of coral, feeding it nutrients in the pattern the ancient texts described. The coral began to change, forming complex structures that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Living architecture, just like in the old stories. Across the galaxy, similar awakenings were happening. Scientists emerged from hiding. Ancient laboratories were reopened. Forbidden books were pulled from secret hiding places. Each success led to more experiments, more discoveries, more proof that the hegemony had been lying for thousands of years. Commander Tarek watched his control boards with growing alarm. Red warning lights flashed across 17 different sectors. Energy signatures were appearing on worlds that had been dark for millennia. Unauthorized scientific activity was spiking everywhere at once. Report, he commanded his lieutenant, another shadow being like himself. Sir, we're detecting fusion reactions on 12 worlds, unauthorized bioengineering on 6 more, and something is happening on Nexus 7 that our sensors can't identify. Tarek's red eyes burned brighter. The contamination is spreading faster than our models predicted. What are your orders, sir? Tarek studied the displays. Normally, the hegemony would crush such rebellion immediately. A few public executions, some destroyed laboratories, and the populations would remember their place. But this was different. The humans had shown that the forbidden technologies actually worked. You could not unteach that knowledge. Prepare the Shadow Fleet, Tarek ordered. Full deployment across all affected sectors. We need to stop this before it spreads further. But, even as he gave the orders, Tarek wondered if they were already too late. The spark had been lit. And sparks had a way of becoming fires. Dr. Eugen Song stood in the center of the great meeting hall on Space Station Unity, looking out at the most unusual audience she had ever seen. 43 different alien species had gathered to hear her speak. There were the tall, graceful Velanari, with their glowing skin patches, the crystalline Zephyrians, who sang instead of talking, the aquatic Murtai, in their water-filled breathing suits, and dozens of others, all watching her with expressions of wonder and fear. Today I want to talk about stars, Eugen began, activating her holographic projector. A perfect image of a yellow sun appeared above her head, rotating slowly. Most people think stars are just big balls of fire that give us light and heat. But that's like saying the ocean is just water. Stars are tools. Very big, very powerful tools. She gestured, and the hologram changed. Magnetic field lines became visible around the star, showing how they twisted and moved. Stars have magnetic fields just like planets do. If you understand how these fields work, you can control them. You can direct the stellar wind like pointing a garden hose. You can focus the radiation to exactly where you need it. You can even trigger controlled solar flares to send energy across space. The Zephyrian delegate, a being that looked like living crystal, began to make musical sounds. The translator converted it to words. Our ancestors spoke of such things in the time before Shadow. We thought them myths and legends. Not myths, Eugen smiled. Physics. Very basic physics that we teach to first-year engineering students on Earth. A ripple of amazement went through the crowd. What humans considered simple beginner knowledge was completely revolutionary to them. But the hegemony told us that manipulating stellar forces was impossible, said the Murtai representative, her voice bubbling through her water suit. They said it would destroy entire star systems. Only if you do it wrong, Eugen replied. But with proper calculations and safety systems, it's no more dangerous than any other large engineering project. My own grandfather helped build the solar collectors around Alpha Centauri. They've been working safely for over 200 years. Captain Jinwoo received the reports on his personal communicator while the meeting continued. The news was amazing. Across 17 star systems, civilizations were waking up from their long sleep. The Velinari had found their old orbital garden platforms, floating dead in space around their homeworld, using modified human hydroponic systems. They had brought 3 of them back to life, for the first time in 3,000 years. Food was growing in space, above Kethis Prime. The Murtai had done something even more impressive. They had rebuilt their ancient tidal generators, massive machines that turned ocean currents into electrical power. Their underwater cities were lit up like jewels for the first time in generations. On Nexus 7, the crystalline Nexuri had remembered their song sciences. They were humming mathematical formulas that actually changed the structure of matter around them. They had grown an entire new city district in just 2 weeks, singing it into existence from raw crystal. But the most remarkable change was simpler than all of these technical achievements. Worlds were turning their lights back on. Cities that had existed in perpetual twilight for millennia were blazing with illumination. Streets were lit. Buildings glowed. Even homes had bright windows again. People were no longer afraid of being seen, Commander. Tarek watched this catastrophe unfold from his command ship. The Shadow Fleet was moving at full speed toward the infected sectors, but he already knew they might be too late. The contamination had spread too far, too fast. "Sir," reported his lieutenant, "we're detecting energy signatures from over 400 worlds now. The rebellion is spreading exponentially." "Deploy all energy drain weapons," Tarek ordered. "We'll extinguish their lights one world at a time if we have to." The Shadow Fleet carried weapons that the hegemony had perfected over thousands of years. Dark energy projectors that could drain, fusion reactors, entropy bombs that made advanced technology simply stop working. Shadow generators so powerful, they could block out entire stars. These weapons had never failed before. They had crushed countless rebellions, extinguished countless hopes, dimmed countless lights. But as the Shadow Fleet approached the first rebel world, something unexpected happened. The defenders did not try to hide their energy signatures. They did not dim their lights or power down their weapons. Instead, they blazed brighter. The human ships led the defense, their fusion drives burning like miniature suns. But they were not alone. Velinari bioships pulsed with living light. Zephyrian crystal vessels sang with harmonic energy. Murtai craft rode waves of focused tidal force. For the first time in 5,000 years, the hegemony faced enemies who refused to be dimmed, and they discovered something that terrified them. They had grown weak in the darkness. They had spent so long fighting shadows that they had forgotten how to battle light. The war for the galaxy's future had begun, and the light was winning. The biggest battle in galactic history was happening across 3 star systems at once. Space itself seemed to be at war, as massive black ships fought against vessels that blazed with every color of light imaginable. Chief Engineer Hunwoo Nam's hands moved quickly across his control panel as the UES Prometheus shook from another shadow beam attack. The enemy's weapons were strange and terrifying. Instead of explosions or heat, they drained energy away, making lights dim and systems fail. Captain Hunwoo called out over the noise of alarms. "I have an idea. You know how we can make stars burn brighter with stellar ignition charges. I think I can reverse the process. Instead of making a star shine more, I can make their shadow generators overload and break. Captain Jinwoo gripped his command chair as the ship shook again. Through the main screen, he could see the enemy flagship, a massive construct of living darkness called the Eternal Darkness. Around them, ships from dozens of species fought together, human vessels with burning fusion drives, Velinary bioships that pulsed with living light, Zephyrian crystal ships that sang with harmonic energy, Murtai craft that rode waves of tidal force. Do it, Jinwoo ordered. Commander Tarek stood on the bridge of the Eternal Darkness, confident that this battle would end like all the others. For 5,000 years, his people had crushed every rebellion the same way. They would drain the enemy's energy, dim their lights, and watch them surrender in despair. But something was different about these enemies. The human ships kept burning bright, even under shadow beam attack. The alien vessels fought with a coordination and determination he had never seen before. Worst of all, they seemed to be getting brighter, instead of dimmer, as the battle continued. "Sir," reported his lieutenant, "the enemy energy output is increasing. They're not following normal battle patterns." Tarek's red eyes narrowed. "Increase. Shadow beam, intensity. Drain them faster." But even as more shadow generators powered up, the enemy fleet continued to blaze. Then something happened that made Tarek's ancient heart freeze with shock. Communications. Officer Minji Lee's voice rang out across every frequency, reaching every ship in the battle. "This is humanity to all vessels. Full illumination, all sources. Show them what we've remembered." In that moment, every single ship in the coalition fleet exploded with light. Not weapon fire, but pure energy. Fusion drives that had been running at half power suddenly blazed like miniature stars. Quantum reactors that had been held in reserve poured their energy into external displays. Plasma conduits that had been darkened for stealth lit up like brilliant veins of fire. The Velinary bioships began to glow with every color their living hulls could produce. The Zephyrian crystal vessels sang so loudly that they became visible, as pure sound made into light. The Nexari ships hummed mathematical equations that turned space itself into patterns of energy. The combined fleet became a constellation of defiance that lit up the void for light years, in every direction. It was not just a battle formation anymore. It was a statement written in fire across the darkness. We will not be dimmed. The shadow generators, ancient machines that had blocked out suns for millennia, tried to absorb all this light, but there was too much of it. One by one, they began to overload. Warning alarms screamed across hegemony ships as their primary weapons started to fail. Hyenwoo's plan worked perfectly. The stellar ignition charges, reversed and fired at the largest shadow generator, caused a chain reaction. The massive machine tried to absorb the starbright energy, but instead, it shattered like black glass. Then another generator failed. Then, another. For the first time in 5,000 years, natural sunlight touched the hegemony's fortress worlds, on the bridge of the Eternal Darkness. Commander Tarek felt something he had forgotten existed. As the natural light from nearby stars reached his ship, he remembered what it was like to hope. The battle was over quickly after that. Without their shadow generators, the hegemony ships were just old vessels with scared crews. They surrendered, one by one. Their commanders asking for something that had not been heard in the galaxy for millennia. Mercy, in the days that followed, surrendered hegemony leaders were brought aboard human ships. Dr. Yujin Song worked to treat their light poisoning, a condition caused by thousands of years in artificial darkness. As she helped them, she explained basic physics and showed them that energy was not something to fear. Engineer Minho Seo spent hours with former Shadow Wardens, teaching them how fusion reactors actually worked. Energy isn't evil, he explained, patiently. It's just potential. Potential to build, to grow, to become something better. The galaxy began to change in ways that seemed impossible just months before. Trade routes that had been dark for millennia hummed with power. Civilizations that had forgotten how to dream suddenly started planning new cities, new ships, new worlds to explore. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries began working together on projects that would have been unthinkable under hegemony rule. The Velinari shared their bioengineering knowledge. The Zephyrians taught their song sciences. The Myrtai showed others how to harvest energy from ocean worlds. And at the center of it all, humanity had earned their place not as conquerors or rulers, but as the species who had reminded everyone else how to dream of dawn.